I've talked to some people that say they're sick of this virus. I'm like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Let me tell you something. You ain't promised next year. You ain't promised tomorrow. What I want to do is I want to limit your exposures. But then when that damn whistle blow, let's go kick somebody's ass and play some football. But one team will do this better than the other 31. Trust me. It might as well be us. So be ready for chaos. Embrace it. Embrace it. Because if we're going to play, the team that handled this thing the best now is going to have the best chance of winning that trophy.
Is it you getting fired up?
Yes. They should, for the 4 weeks of Hard Knocks, just play that song underneath my show, and it would just be me screaming and freaking gyrating and going crazy. Anyone who's listened to the show in Vegas, and by the way, thanks for coming on or watching Late Night Happy Hour. Early start, Petro's in Kansas City, it's Cofield. But anyone who's listened to Cofield and Company, I am one of the biggest Hard Knocks fans there is. I don't deal well with negativity in terms of the review of Hard Knocks. And I'll just set it up this way. And I say the same thing every year, and I think the same thing every time it starts. I love the football environment. I love the way coaches talk to players, and I want that to be my workplace 365 fucking days a year. And I want to be able to speak like that because I can in my little world, like in my little show box.
Right.
But I want that. I want the accountability and the in-your-face stuff, hour to hour, minute to minute, day to day, to be my workplace, which, by the way, sort of represents the name of the show we're working with we're not effing around here. How awesome was it? Watch Soren, I can't stop. Hard Knocks gets me going. How awesome is it for a coach to come on and he's like, there's going to be tough times. There's going to be intensity, all right, with this virus. I had it. And then he just moves on. Everyone's like, wait, what? You had it? Yeah. He's like, yep, football. Let's go. Come on.
I got your back. I mean, I do appreciate the football mindset, the football approach to, look, you know, Scott Pioli, when he was the general manager, used to say, is football important to this guy? Right? When they draft somebody, we like him. Football is important to him, which is code for, he'll go out there and he'll jack up his body in an effort to keep playing, right? He will go out there when he shouldn't go out there and do things he shouldn't do because football is important to him. And I'm with you. I do think about if everything ran the way a football organization does, which really, frankly, is borrowed from military approach to things, right? The head coach says this is it, and everybody's doing it. Yeah, and I've talked to guys. I remember talking to Brian Waters, you know, All-Pro, Pro Bowl guard, and he said, listen, it doesn't matter if the play comes in and you think it's a piece of shit. We're running it because everybody doing their own thing definitely ain't going to work. So even if you don't like it, it's like 3rd and 16. We're going to do a fullback dive, right? Well, then we're going to line up and we're going to fire out and we're going to try to do a fullback dive because it ain't going to work if somebody else decides to drop back to throw when we're all blocking. What he's like, you know, you got to have a plan. So there is, even to the point of like, we don't believe in this coach anymore. He's shit. He has no idea what he's doing. They're all still going to do what they're told to do, right? And then they all take it seriously. They all put all the time in. And there are guys, certainly they're screw-offs that are just so talented that can get away without it. But you know, Patrick Mahomes, as talented as it gets, first one in, last one to leave, all that stuff. I'm with you, and I do think there's a lot we in society, for everybody running around slapping each other on the ass about how big a football fan they are. Like, nobody really leads their life the way the NFL leads its life during the season. Everyone thinks it's great. You know what it is? They like it as a backdrop while they're getting drunk. Okay, that's reality of what it is. But as far as learning the lessons that are there that the football's teaching, they're not getting that. And that is a total commitment and an organizational structure. That being said, Hard Knocks can be a complete turd. Like, your blind allegiance to like it's always good. Yeah.
I thought the Raiders season last year was one of the worst.
It sucked.
Of all.
It sucked.
And I'm still pissed off at the NFL. And I'm still pissed off, I'm guessing, at Stan Kroenke, who everyone, I guess, is afraid of him flexing his muscle and coming out of his hobbit hole or wherever he lives, his $1 billion hobbit hole, and threatening to sue everybody. What I'm pissed about is we should have had Hard Knocks this year. You scumbags, we could have been, even in this weird time, this could have been a Vegas promo for 4 weeks. Instead, we got to see goddamn Napa and Alameda. The Raiders coming here is monumental, especially, the history. You were here. Yeah. You were here in the late 90s. If I went up to you and I'm like, we're getting an NFL team, you would have been like, what? the turnaround in 20 years is incredible. By the way, Grudell and company and HBO didn't know there was going to be a pandemic, but my God, we could so use it right now. And do we have to really advertise the LA stadium for 5 weeks? Does Kroenke really need that? No. The Spanos really deserve that.
No.
Right?
No, and I'm especially if you know the history behind that the league had a plan for a league-owned stadium in Los Angeles. They jerked around, and Kroenke, to his credit, finally said, screw you guys. Enough of your talk. I'm out of here. I'm going. I'm going to do my own thing. And he built it, but he basically stabbed his 31 partners in the back. Ultimately, the Chargers got on board and said, I'm doing my own thing, and yet they're going to use him to glamorize. I will say this. There are rules to, you can't have been a winning team, right? You can't have been on in the last 3 or 4 years. I forget what they are, but there's a list of rules on where it is. So you get down to where there's 8 to 10 teams that are actually eligible to be on Hard Knocks. But if you keep winning, you never have to go on Hard Knocks. You notice the Patriots, it wasn't even a question. You're in the playoffs, you can turn it down.
Yep. Well,
so will this year be a success? Because last year was a turd, right?
I don't.
Cleveland was a success. Here's a turd.
You got to come up with personalities. And last year, Hard Knocks got hijacked by Antonio Brown, who sucked. He was boring. He mumbles. You can't hear what he's saying. Then he burns his feet. That drama ruined everything. And they almost, in a lot of ways, they didn't. This is going to sound crazy. I don't think they used Gruden enough. How do you flop on Hard Knocks with John goddamn Gruden as the main character? Right?
Knock if you're with me. That did get really old, though. I will say this. There is some cheese ball. You talk about the NFL life, and I agree with the structure and the accountability and everything that goes into it. And if you're, those who are great get moved up. I totally agree with you on that. But there is a lot of cheese in those. And that everybody's sitting there knocking 6 times every time we got to have to talk. It's kind of like, all right, cheese ball. I can see a little bit of why they're not exactly ripping everybody's face off already in 2 years of John Gruden. You're telling me that you didn't sit there and go come on, John, enough.
You can also see their plan is to overturn the roster too, to kind of get guys that they think are going to connect with Gruden. Some earlier comments on Hard Knocks in general. Martin is no more Mr. No more Mr. Nice Cofield. That's not the case. I'm actually holding back. I'm holding back every day at work. Believe me, the restraint I show with everyone in that building, I'm holding back. Tom Crusader, how good would it feel, to be able to tell a coworker, stop effing up? Yeah. Petro, Petro can do it. I know you can do it in your circle, your crew.
Right.
And I do it. Right. And I also encourage people to tell me to stop effing up. Come back at me. Adam doesn't do it a whole lot, but Adam actually expressed some frustration after the show today. We were talking about interviews, and sometimes I'll just back out and let him ask 5 questions in a row, and he expressed some frustration. So that's the point of kind of the bully thing where you tell people, let's get your crap together.
Right.
They got to come back at you. Earn my respect.
The problem it is, I think, in every walk of American and almost every walk of American corporations are that if you're committed to it, there's more paid to how you say something than what you say. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yep. And
instead of everybody being in to try to win. Yeah. The guy who rolls in at 10 and leaves at 3, we can't tell him, hey, shitheel, how about you show up and we wouldn't have these problems? You can't do that. you've got to tiptoe around him. And if you do that, you're the guy who's in trouble. That doesn't happen in the NFL. In the NFL, the people who are not getting the job done are held accountable.
Yep. Get out. You heard them. I mean, they were like, they're busting chops, but they're kind of, there was a part at the end where they're showing like Zoom failures and like the reason they're doing that. And in there, they're like, all right, get your shit together. Learn how to use Zoom. Come on. Like we got, you used it twice. Let's go. I don't want to see videos off. I mean, come on. But
this is what, do you remember like a month ago? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, keep going.
But do you remember like a month ago or maybe even like 5 or 6 weeks ago, and we were talking about like what it takes to win? And we're like quarterback, coach, and we were talking about general manager. But I said, listen, owner matters. Like ownership matters. And it's not necessarily that it's the guy that he comes in, he gives a rah-rah speech. The owner will hire not a guy to be the IT department. He'll have an IT department, and they'll be good. And they're guys that know what they're doing. And so when it comes time to draft, and you've got a draft from home, they race into every coach and every GM's house, and they build them a goddamn war room. And they're hardwired with Ethernets. They're not like, whoa, shit, I don't know. I think the Wi-Fi might be strong enough. They get in there and they get it done. That's the ownership part, is spending the money on the little things so that the people can do their job. How much time do you – listen, I've taken 3 days off. Do you know how much of the last 3 days I have spent on hold with bullshit companies in this country just trying to get something simple done? Like seriously, like if we had real ownership in the country, right? Like a real management, and I'm not talking about the current government or president. I'm just talking about in general because it's been both parties that have gone through this. But like you can't get anybody on the goddamn phone on any company in this country, no matter what. And if you do, they're 3 continents away. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, like it hurts. Piss on hurts. I've been trying to cancel a car reservation since the pandemic started for August. I can't get anyone on the phone. They finally put someone on the phone. He goes, yeah, it's canceled. I said, okay, well, did you send me an email? Yeah, I sent you an email. It should be there. I'm like, I don't have an email. Well, it's coming. It'll be there in the next like 2 or 3 minutes. It's not there. Call the next day. Well, it takes 24 to 48 hours. Call 2 days later. I'm like, I still don't have an email. Have you canceled this reservation? Like the pandemic day, I don't have my flight or hotel. I can't even go. What are you doing? Like, if you're going to screw me, just say, hey, asshole, we're screwing your fat ass. Like, you're not getting a car. Tough shit. We're taking your money. I don't know. I'm in total limbo. Do I have a $400 credit? Do I have a car? Can I change it? I don't know. But I know some guy in the Philippines spent 10 minutes telling me he thinks this pandemic is God getting back at us. That's what I got after 3 different calls and 5 hours of my life shit down the toilet trying to just find out, Hertz, are you screwing me? Or can I move the reservation? Are you refunding me? What is going on? I have no money. I have no confirmation of anything. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. But that's every company to some degree now. Oh, yeah. Right? But in the NFL, like, no. Like, good ownership says, no, here it is. We're ready to draft. We'll draft the shit out of this thing right now. Let's go. We got TVs everywhere. We got monitors. We got lists. Everybody's on a conference call. We got headphones in. We're ready to go. And then you got the other one where the guy's like, I don't know. You're glitching here. I'm not sure. What do we got? Right? Like it's a commitment to doing it the right way.
Is this an annoying response to your email issue? Did you check the junk mail? You prick.
That's your junk mail. Bend over. I'll show it to you.
So awesome. So yes, you're right. There are Hard Knocks episodes or seasons that aren't as good. I think this one has potential because it has 2 teams, so they're gonna have more material to work with.
Well, I think that's what they realized that the Raiders there's no compelling guys on here. Like that safety, that safety from West Virginia that just wanted to hit everybody and get everybody hurt, and then got hurt himself like week 2. Like, that was like the star of the freaking show.
Yeah. And I was thinking about the rosters with the Rams and the Chargers, and I'm like, they're holding some people back. So, although they did, they did get into Jalen Ramsey, which I thought that was intriguing when Jalen Ramsey stormed out because they're trying to follow up. The media's trying to follow up and stir the pot on his contract, and then he leaves. They make him come back, and then what we saw was him come back and then lecture him some more. And I was waiting for like one of these pussies who's like 58 years old to go, Jalen, all right, okay, you walked out. You're going to lecture us more? Like, we get it, all right? We're not going to ask any more questions. So
but I don't know.
Because you're wasting my time now.
Yeah, but I don't know if you've been on it, but that's the thing is you get 50. I'll give the Rams credit for going and getting him, Because I tried for it. Now, it wasn't a pandemic and we weren't on Zoom, and they're supposed to be accountable at their locker after the game and at least one time per week. Marcus Peters' final year in Kansas City. Like, we knew something was going to go down with Marcus Peters because they hid him. He wanted to hide it, and they let him hide because they knew he'd be a train wreck. And he was. Every time he came in front of the mic, he was a train wreck, right? We get loose here with the language because it's not FCC. When you're in the locker room, like, he would do things like the TV cameras would be in the locker room. They only have like 15 minutes to go trying to get guys. And me walk around the locker room dropping F-bombs behind everybody so you can't use any of the video or any of the audio you got because he's screwed it up. Then you go to talk to him and go, oh, you got something to say? Well, I ain't talking to that man. Like, oh, you're a good guy, and that's bullshit. So I'll give him credit. They brought him back. But you know what sucks about the Zoom thing? Because, like, I've asked Andy Reid, you get one question now. Because then they mute you when your question's done, and they're on to the next guy, right? And we need to have like okay, everybody gets on the Zoom 15 minutes early and say, listen, these are the stories. If he doesn't answer, I'm sorry, your shit feature on who washes the socks, that's got to go away, right? That's got to go away. We don't have time for that shit. You've got to press Andy Reid on what are the protocols of COVID, because nobody gives a shit about your sock story, right? Figure that out somewhere else, and let's focus on what the issue is here. Right, you need to have like a big group effort. I asked Andy Reid a question about COVID, and like he gives it. I said, listen, I wanted to know, like, why didn't the NFL? How hard? Number one, he's a big guy on the committee. How hard did you guys discuss a bubble? Right, because the bubbles are all working, and he just totally non-answered me. He's like, well, I don't know what baseball. I was like, hey, baseball's even talking about they're going to use a bubble in the playoffs. So how much time did you specifically with the league spend talking about a bubble? Right? And how close did it get? And do you wish that you had it? I'm not sure what's going on in baseball, and I haven't heard anything about how their playoffs are going to work. What? And I'm on mute. I'm literally waving. I'm the jackass. No, not the question. Not the question.
Right.
Like, not it. Oh no, we're moving on. And I don't blame the PR guys. I mean, they're told Andy Reid's a rock star now. We're not going to get shit out of Andy Reid. We got a tiny little hint of a turd. Yeah. A tiny little hint of a turd from him each time he talked. We ain't getting shit now that the man is wearing a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, inside baseball stuff there. I don't mean baseball specifically. It's like I always wonder if the fans really care about Zoom access, and they're fine with getting all the news from Chiefs.com and Raiders.com. Other stuff on the show that I thought was interesting. Obviously,
you never said, will it be a success? Like, take a stand. Will this be a good Hard Knocks? You've had a chance to see the opening one. Is it going to be a good one, or is it going to be a turd?
Yes. You know my answer. Yes. I'm the eternal optimist.
Okay.
I'm glass overflowing. Even when it sucks balls, and afterwards the Raiders wasn't that good, I still get something out of it because I get a kick out of coaches. I like the trash talk amongst the players. It's just an atmosphere, that I love watching. So I'm down with it.
So you know what? To your credit, what the Raiders Hard Knocks did to me last year. I bought the HBO because I don't have the HBO, so I got the HBO streaming to watch Hard Knocks because the Browns one was so good and I didn't have it, so I didn't see it. So I'm like, well, I got to get it. The Hard Knocks is great. Everybody talked about the Hard Knocks last year and I didn't have it. I got to get it. It sucked. The first night I watched, I'm like, this thing was terrible. I am screwed. I'm watching some kind of something on HBO because this blew. So that's when I started watching Game of Thrones.
See, it worked out.
Game of Thrones on.
We do every year because Adam Hill loves it as well. We don't do it, but we would do 2 hours of recap after every episode. We're insane. Adam loves it because Adam is meek and inherit the earth. He's often a pussy, so he watches and he's like, "Oh, I could be like that. That would be great if I could do that." And he knows I'm not saying something out of turn. Some of the most intriguing parts, because I'm also the other thing is I'm a gigantic Sean McVay fan. Like,
okay,
on the show we call him the boy genius. We hate Jared Goff because he's taken down McVay slowly but surely, but McVay, it's his fault for signing him to the contract. First of all, I got real jealous of that pool he had. By the way, bro, put on the shirt. I got jealous of that. Right?
Yeah.
He had the shirt off. He's all yoked up at 5'6" and 270 pounds. That was cool. And tell me you have not wanted at work to give the "don't shit here" speech.
Yes.
Right? How many times have your office bathrooms been blown up by some animal?
Yeah.
Some animal. It's a workplace. If you have to take a dump like that, don't do it here. You selfish prick. And and by the way, I'm talking to women too. If the smell is coming out of the women's bathroom because some lady took a football-sized dump, don't do it.
Well, but here's the thing, man. How about a courtesy flush? Like, are you waiting to marvel at your creation or something? Like to stand up and give it a once over? Like hit the plunger. Like, let's go.
People will just sit on their excrement for minutes at a time. They don't care. And he's right. The porta potty. Come on.
Oh, dude.
It's a shared bathroom, and there's like 2 of them there, and someone takes a crap. I mean, for the coach to even have to go out there and give a lecture on where to drop your deuce is outrageous. You know what? I've already downgraded the Rams. They're down half a win.
I'll give you a story. A couple spring trainings ago, the ESPN spring training bus comes around, and one of the ESPN employees, I'm not going to name who, tells a story about how the ESPN bus, they're all going around from spring training site to spring training site, right? I guess they got one in Florida. Maybe it's down in Florida for half a spring training, then it's up in Arizona for the other half, and they hit every club. And so there's one rule: don't crap on the bus, right? That's the one rule, right? Like you're not sleeping in it. It's just a mobile studio. Like don't crap in the bus. Who do you think did? Monster bomb on the bus.
We're talking about an ESPN.
ESPN guy several years ago.
What sport? Baseball?
Baseball.
In the chat room, baseball, ESPN people, start guessing.
Baseball guy. So he covered baseball. Former player.
Okay, because I was going to go to some of the Sunday night work that Berman did.
No,
and we would
former player.
You know he took some outrageous shits in the years.
I see the rhymes with. I'll give you one here in a minute. Just I want to give everybody a chance to think. I see some good guesses, but I have not seen the right guy yet.
I think a lot of people are going to go for the fat guy, and I don't know that it's always the fat guy. I mean, I did that with Berman, but I don't know.
Not Kruk. It's not Pedro. It's not Sutcliffe. It's not Baines.
I mean, I would like it to be a little guy, unsuspecting.
It's a guy. Now he's not small, but he's not known as a Titanic fat ass. But he's not thin anymore. He is known as a guy who was everybody's agent in the clubhouse. He's the clubhouse lawyer. He's the clubhouse boss. And some people will tell you the blood was fake.
I can't. I'm gonna get so I can't do this.
You know who it is, right?
Of course, yes. With all the stuff we have in that guy,
there it is. Yeah, they're getting it now. Monster bomb. And like the bus driver had to drive it like 70 miles to like a campground where he could flush it all out and clean the whole thing. And like it set back everything they were doing. Kurt Schilling dropping about one rule on the bus: don't shit on the bus.
Typical. The guy who cut his ankle. Unbelievable.
I love that story. I wish I could tell you who told it to me too.
Nah, don't. That's a good source.
I won't.
That's a good source.
Oh, it's great.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Schilling, a big time shitter. Unbelievable. All right.
Our boy JB will love that.
Oh, yeah. I'll throw it back at you.
Okay.
Not to get too personal, and I hope the wife is not going to watch this, but
10% chance she likes you, so she checks it out to see what's going on in your world.
Yeah, I'm not a public crapper at all. Like
no, me neither.
I've taken
home field preferable. Very few road trips.
I mean, I will drive a distance to get home to do it, and I don't do it at airports. I've say my lifetime, and I'm old, less than 12 times. Porta potty once in 50 years.
I had to in camp when I was a kid. That was honestly I held it on like a trip. Like we did somewhere we went over like 2 days of camping and doing water activities and then 4 days of hiking and crap. And I swear, I think it was like 3 or 4 days. I waited till like midway. We went to a restaurant and like I hadn't taken a crap in like 4 days and I thought I was going to die. Like the stomach, but that is not an advisable thing. But when you're like a 6th, 7th grade kid, like crapping on a barrel is like not option. It's just not an option. It's not happening.
I will throw out this prediction. It will be a lot more than one time in the next however long I live, because when you get this old, and regularity can be an issue. When you have to go, you go. Trust me.
There's nothing worse than the airport, is there, though? The hustle and bustle. You got your luggage in there. Like, can you even find the room? Because you're carrying on because you don't want to pay. So get your carry-on in here, and you got your backpack. And where do you stuff this stuff? And then you don't want it sliding over to the other side. Is this guy going to steal my shit? You know, what's going on? Well, it's the worst. Airport shit.
The other issue we got into on a non-Petro late night was, is it illegal to use the giant handicap stall? Because I use it every time. I want to have
illegal, but I would. It's last resort.
It's very Schilling-esque to steal.
It is Schilling-esque.
If some poor guy rolls up in a wheelchair and he's banging on the door, we already saw that bit on Curb Your Enthusiasm. You shouldn't do it. So, I'm gonna save the rest of my material, I think, for the Cofield and Company show on Hard Knocks. Plus, I have to review it 2 or 3 times.
All right. So should McVay leave?
Well, let's get to that. He's got a presence.
ESPN. How about ESPN? The balls. Like the guy who 10 minutes ago, if you met him once at an airport, you were hired as a head coach. And they're like, dude, it's kind of over for your coaching. So you want to try this broadcasting thing?
Well, let's give the story because Andrew Marchand had this in the New York Daily News. And apparently ESPN still not happy. They pieced this team together. This is not going to be the team. By the way, why can't I remember who the third person is?
Steve Levy.
It's Louis Riddick, and who else?
Louis Riddick and
exactly. That's how much of a splash this team made. And I think Louis Riddick will do a good job. He's kind of dry, but I think someone good with Louis Riddick can pull out an edge because he'll get a little truculent from time to time on Twitter. So I think that'll be the job of Levy. And I'm not sure.
I think it sounds like a pretty good number 2 or 3 team on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't sound like it should be the standalone game. And the team is Levy, Riddick. Oh yeah, I remember. Rhymes with Greasy.
Oh God.
Brian Greasy.
No comment.
They're all right. Riddick is pretty good, but he's like pretty good as an analyst in the studio. I don't know how he's going to be like, hey, you got to spit this thing out. Like, come up with something really hard hitting here in about 16 seconds.
So ESPN clearly, burned and spurned by Romo and Peyton Manning, and Manning winds up landing nowhere. But Tony Romo,
they should have spent more on Phillip Rivers. So I'm going to tell you, Phillip Rivers, talking to Curtis, who puts together, Curtis and I do the pregame show. Curtis really is the pregame show. He builds it, goes up with all the sound, listens to everything all week. He loves when the Chiefs play the Chargers because Phillip Rivers' cuts all week are fantastic. He's like the most thoughtful guy. He's got a little bit of a twang, and he's got a little bit of dry humor, and he's really smart. And so they should have thrown what would it take? Phillip Rivers got like $20 million, but he wants to be home with his kids. Listen, they tried for $140 million to Tony Romo and couldn't get him.
It's crazy. The TV money.
That's why you bring it up, and you're kind of like just.
No. But I'm getting to the story. So ESPN burned by Romo getting $18 million, turning him down. So that's the number now for Monday Night Football. So ESPN apparently went to Sean McVay, who's 3 years into being a head coach, like legacy guy, and he's done a solid job. He's made a Super Bowl. He clearly has a passion for football. Well, ESPN goes and talks to him, and they're like, "Hey, would you like to do Monday Night Football?" Which is, when you think about it, is outrageous. Like, this guy's got a 30-year career ahead of him. He is all football. But then you start thinking about it, you're like, it's $20 million.
Right.
Like, okay, like if I'm McVay, I go to Kroenke every year and I'm like, 20 mil, Kroenke, 20 mil. Come on.
Listen, I don't know that he can do it.
Tony Romo makes like $6 or $7 million more than Belichick. Belichick should be the first one who goes to draft, and he's like, Romo is announcing football. I want $25 million a year now.
I'm trying to find coaches' contracts are harder to find.
They don't release any of it.
No, they're out there. You can find some numbers here and there. You never know.
I've kept the massage thing under wraps for 7 years. I knew about it. I had sources in Florida. So you know what? It's not 25 now. I want 30 million a year. But it's crazy when you think about it. $18 million a year for Tony Romo. And these NFL coaches are making great money. You saw that Encino house with McVay. Yeah. You could walk away and have security and not have Ajita for like the next 10 years and go do what Gruden did. Go back when you're 44.
Yeah, he was making 4, and then they gave him the raise. And so he's probably, my guess is they took him up after the Super Bowl to the $8 million range, because that would have put him in the Andy Reid neighborhood, because that's where Reid was. And Reid was like the 5th or 6th highest, or maybe 6th or 7th highest paid coaches that were up there. But like, yeah, I mean, you make more. He could have made more on Monday Night Football. I mean, it's a real question. Step away, do it for 2 3s. First of all, the Rams roster their cap is shit. Like, they're so top heavy on the cap. Like, they have real roster issues, and they've locked into a mega contract for an Alex Smith. It's like the biggest sin you can make is there's like a handful of difference makers. Pay those quarterbacks, and it sucks the first couple of years, and the Chiefs will have this coming up in 21, 22. But, like, you don't pay Alex Smith 80, 90% of what you pay Patrick Mahomes, right? 80, 90% of what you pay Russell Wilson. There's the difference makers, right? That's how it works. And so, you like, honestly, the best thing for his career, like as a coach, would be to bail and do like 2-3 years of Monday Night Football and go soak up everything. I mean, I'm telling you, I talked to Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, and his 1 year out of football, he was at the NFL Films office like he went in there every day and was just soaking up every piece of film he could possibly watch. And he came back and he was ready to rock and roll. And he was a better defensive coordinator for doing it. You go do that during the week. You call games. You get a chance to look at a 30,000-foot view, and you divorce yourself from a shit contract for a quarterback that doesn't make a difference. It actually is not a bad strategy as a coach. And you're going to be really good because he's personable and talks well. I mean, I know people are thinking we're just like, this is talk radio bullshit. Like, oh, you guys are just trying to stir the shit. It actually would be a good idea.
Yes. Head to head, more important for McVay to separate himself from Jared Goff or this lady he's marrying? Come on, dude. You're 34. You're turning down $20 million a year. She's a nice looking woman. Go Jeter route. You don't need to get married till you're 45, Sean. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not, you know me. I like personal lives I don't like to talk about unless it affects your ability on the field. So I don't like whatever she floats.
This is a general anti-marriage take. That's all.
But 100%. George Brett got married when he was 40, right? Rock star in my town. I covered him. Like totally got it. Yeah.
Give her a care package. It might be a couple $1 million care package this time, but
dude, but I mean, that's it. Like when you own the world, go own the world. Like, and especially if you're a guy, I mean, I'm not saying if it's like, it shouldn't be this way. It's totally sexist. And it's probably not to the point that it was at one time, but like you're always going to be in demand. If you're 44 sitting on $100 million, having been on TV and coached the team to the Super Bowl, like you'll find somebody. Like go focus on your craft, do what it is. But listen, if she makes him happy, I mean, God bless him. Like all those LA marriages always work out.
That's sneaky. One more broadcast note. This is an important one, and I think you're on the angle that Adam Hill was on today with Deion Sanders is out at NFL Network. Apparently, they tried to cut his pay, whatever, and he's out. But we know
he's not out, Steve. He decided he wanted to coach.
So this is what this is all about, right?
Yeah, he decided he wanted to coach, right? Like when I got fired in radio, I didn't get fired. I decided I wanted to book games, right? That's what I want to do. Yeah. That's how it worked.
Sure. It works. It works. Do you think he can be a head coach?
No way. No chance. None. Name the star player that's been a great head coach. Ready? Like we can do it on one hand. Larry Bird, one coach of the year, was a star player that did it.
Right.
Magic Johnson, shit. Like coming to the NFL. Like they're not the star players are never any good. Like, no. Look at the guys who were coaches. Bill Belichick was like a turd at Amherst. Andy Reid was like a lineman at BYU. Like no star goes on to be a great coach. John Elway has not been a great GM.
That's sarcastic for sure. He's actually, I guess he's going to work with, so he's going to be at Barstool podcasting. But here's the deal, Q Levy. Barstool will allow him to do whatever he wants in terms of coaching if he gets into it. So this is a stopover. Right. I will say this, Barstool for Deion, I think is a really dangerous place. If he wants to be a coach.
Oh, I agree.
I think it's a really dangerous place to go because I think he'll get sucked in by their frat house conversation, which, listen, I'm a pig. I do this stuff too. But I think Deion will start talking about women, talking about escapades. Maybe he might have some really interesting thoughts on race relations. I actually think he's going to hurt his brand if ultimately he wants to get into coaching.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't listen. I think Deion wants, like, here's what Deion's finding out. Like, there's the walk off the field, like, hey, when the cheering stops, right? We've always heard that. There's a book written about that, about how tough it is to transition off being a player. There's also when they, like, don't remember you playing, right? That's the next level. And that's not as, smack you in the face, like when you walk off the field. But, like, people give a shit what you're saying when you play. And they think you're funny and you're oh, God, ha, ha, ha. All the reporters that give you the nervous laughs around the locker room because they got to get a quote from you. So they give you the courtesy laugh and then try to get it. And you think you're a funny guy. Like Shaq thinks he's funny. He's not funny. You know what he is? He's Barkley's foil, right? Barkley just slaps him around verbally, right? But Shaq, he had like a comedy show for like Comedy Central put him on for like 5 weeks and went, this is shit. Yes, because he's not funny, right? Nice guy. He's a good guy, but not funny. And so like Deion, like when you say something and you're like leading the league in interceptions and punt returns, that's some funny shit. Yeah. All right, now you get out and you're like, okay, you're the great Deion Sanders. All right. But now you're 20 years removed. And like nobody cares. Like the young people don't even know who the hell Deion Sanders is. You tell them what he was, prime time and all this, and how big a deal he was. They're like, whatever. You mean kind of like Jalen Ramsey? And like they don't even know. So like you're not a big deal anymore. So you actually have to come with substance. I don't get how the NFL Network will literally let. If we could have just played it down, shit, we'd have our own show on NFL Network, Steve. They'll put any ex-player on and act like, well, he played the game. I know he played the game, but it doesn't mean like, have you heard some of the breakdowns from players? And I'm not saying that we do it better, but I'm going to tell you there are guys that don't play the game, never play the game that do it better than a lot of them. Most of them, they know their position and what their assignment was. And you try to get them to come out and say, like, have you heard Michael Irvin break down quarterbacks? Like, come on, Deion. Like, there's nothing. Like, they get into just bullshitting, locker room bullshit. And how many times can you hear about what they did when they played 20 years ago?
Right.
When it's 20 years ago, nobody wants to hear it. And the NFL Network maybe is wising up. But you know what they'll do? They'll just replace them with, I don't know, what corner retired last year.
Right. I know. It's the same thing every year. On the coaching thing, too, with Deion, he's not getting a head coaching job. He'll have to work his way up. And there is
an assistant job because they want to get his kid.
Yeah. I mean, well, they did that. He's kind of in line. His kid committed to Florida, so I guess he could go there. But in most cases, and this is it's sad for the guys who really want to do it and really want to work, when you've been such a vocal guy like Deion Sanders, like coaches don't want guys like that on the staff. We talked to Rod Woodson, and he actually said it to a couple of different sources, but we talked to Rod Woodson, I don't know, 2 months ago. And Rod Woodson's struggling with the fact because he's coached with the Raiders, right? And he's like, yeah, they really don't. Most coaches in the NFL don't want Hall of Famers on their staff. They feel like there has to be one alpha on the staff. That's the head coach. And they're reluctant to bring guys on. And the other thing that he said is they're reluctant to bring guys on who've been in the media. They're like, we can't trust this guy.
Right.
So I don't think Deion has any chance of working his way up to be a head coach. I mean, the stuff last year, when he's making his pitch for Florida State and there's idiots on social media who are like, that'd be a good idea. Like, cut it out. We had the same thing here. Listen, nice guy, legend of the game, but over and over and over again, every time the UNLV basketball job opens, they're like, give it to Larry Johnson. Like, no. You got to do it. You got to do what Patrick Ewing did, and work your way up. And he's done okay at Georgetown.
Right, another star player, naming the star player that's kicked out.
Chris Mullen, we called it at St. John's, and that's a guy who actually worked in all parts of the NBA. But like he goes to coach college, and you're like, does he have connections? Are they going to be willing to work the recruiting trail the way you have to work? No. And Mullen
And that's the other thing is like Deion Sanders, like you hire him as your DB coach. Like I'm going to tell you, like the Chiefs, their motto is one voice, right? It's Andy Reid. They only make the coordinators available once a week because the league mandates that they have to. They only make the assistant coaches available once a month because the league mandates that they have to. If we're up to Andy Reid, he'd be the only guy that talks. And Deion Sanders is going to be chatting it up with everybody, making himself the center of attention. And that is not what they want. And I'm going to tell you something. The coach being like, well, that guy can't cover like I covered. Like that guy's going to be like, well, you can't cover shit now. Right? Like that doesn't work. That doesn't motivate the NFL player. It doesn't motivate the college player. I mean, it's not going to work. Listen, he got fired. Right? He got fired and he's got a bullshit story. Okay. But, somebody will probably give him a shot to get a little juice in the program, but no. Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm trying to find the comment. Someone was saying, I think half sarcastically, but we should address it. Someone was saying, Soren, I think you're a players hater when it comes to the media.
I'm not, because there's some really, that's fair criticism off hearing me tonight.
Right.
And so I probably should address that. I'm not. I just don't like they love to grab a name.
Yep.
And like some of the best analysts are not the best names, right? Like I know a lot of people like very polarizing guys, Dan Orlovsky. Like if ESPN wanted to go somewhere, they would have gone with Dan Orlovsky. He at least has an opinion. He's definitive about it. He goes out there. He might be wrong. I know some people think he's just a moron. Other people think he steals, ideas, whatever. I don't give a shit. He at least brings it. What's the biggest thing in talk radio? I tell interns this all the time. Do you have something to say? Right? I make him come in and tell me, I go, listen, what do you have to say today? What are you passionate about? Because if you don't have something to say, then what the hell are you doing in this business? So you have to have something to say. So a player who just wants to come in and say, well, back when I played, like you got to come in and be like, Phillip Rivers doesn't have it anymore. Like Tom Brady doesn't have it anymore. He cannot throw the ball down the field. You can win with Tom Brady if you can come up with a dink and dunk offense. Like that's a real statement. And you got to believe it and you got to back it up. No, I mean, Tony Romo's fantastic. Right? He's a tremendous analyst.
In a lot of ways, Tony Romo has spoiled everyone, and now it's like, let's go back to the athletes, man. There's got to be some other Romos out there. You know what? There might not be. There might not be another one for 5 or 10 years. He is so next level. I remember watching him when he came out, and people are like, I don't know if I like this. I'm like, this is brilliant, and it also framed what we were dealing with for years and years and years. Like for one Romo, we've got 100 Phil Simms. Like Phil Simms says nothing. But he's arrogant enough to be like I'm a great analyst. Like, are you listening to what Romo is saying here? 1, his excitement level. 2, his ability to go next level, like high level analysis, but then also have that enthusiasm to connect with the average fan. Like Phil, you don't have that, and you won't work to get that.
Yeah, put up Casey Flatlander because he's right. Joe Montana was awful. Right? 4-time championship quarterback. Eric Dickerson. I love Eric Dickerson. One of my favorite players. Coolest looking player to ever wear an NFL uniform. He sucked on the sideline.
Wait a second. Now, this is a guy who gets bashed. I think Collinsworth is really good. Now, I think his production staff helps him out a lot. But if you really listen, I know people are going to go crazy over this. He was Romo before Romo. Now, Romo's taken it to another level, but Collinsworth football analysis is actually really good.
I agree.
And like someone said, Phil Simms is, I'm not even going to denigrate McCarver that badly. I'm not even going to do that. Phil Simms is worse than McCarver.
Listen, I'll give you, so let's call our shot. Tell me somebody who's going to suck and somebody who's going to be good. I'll go first. Drew Brees is going to suck. I've interviewed the guy. Like, there's not enough personality there. Like, he might have football insight, but you got to tie it together and you got to be able to deliver it. And his interviews are brutal. They're brutal. Tony Romo, do you remember like I'll never forget Tony Romo coming to the mic saying Dak Prescott should quarterback this team. Right? And it's not just about that. Obviously, the situation put him in that moment, but he owned the mic. During that press conference, he owned it. You were hanging on it. You felt the emotion, the hurt. He didn't want to say it, but he knew it was the right thing to say, and he had to do it. He understood the moment and how to capture it and what to say. And I know that's drastically different than breaking down where he called the Chiefs defense all the way down the field in the 2018 AFC Championship game when Tom Brady was dope slapping him from end zone to end zone, right? And just had it completely analyzed. But it's the same thing. It's like, it's seeing the moment. right? And yes, you have to be able to see the football, but then you have to be able to orally put it out there. And Tony Romo's always been able to do that. He's always been that guy. Drew Brees sucks in interviews. And I think he's a great quarterback, but he sucks in interviews. Drew Brees is going to bomb. He's going to go Joe Montana, to quote Casey Flatlander.
That's ridiculous.
You think Brees is going to be great?
I don't think he's going to be great, but Joe Montana is one of the worst ever.
And he's listen, I'm not saying he's going to be as bad. I'm just saying that ESPN is counting on Brees to be Tony Romo. He's not going to even be in the same zip code.
I think he has a chance.
No chance. None.
Let's bet.
No, whatever you want. It's not going to be good. It is not going to be good. I'll give you a guy who will be good, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, you already gave that. Yeah.
Phillip Rivers is going to be really good.
I'm coming back.
I'll give you another guy who'll suck. He's not going to do it, but another guy will suck. Tom Brady will suck. Tom Brady, you give appreciation laughter to. He's not funny. He's not witty. He's not entertaining. He's a stiff.
I'm going to come back with a list next week because I don't like that it's all quarterbacks. So I want to expand it out to other positions.
Well, I'll give you guys that'd be great. Randy Moss would be great.
Okay.
There ends the list.
All right.
Randy Moss is fantastic. I don't know how Randy Moss is not in the Monday Night Booth. He's on your freaking payroll, ESPN. He's the best analyst they've got. Him and Louis Riddick could be great. Randy Moss is the person. I'll tell you, Randy Moss with Randy Moss and Riddick could be good. Randy Moss with I had somebody I was thinking of. Randy Moss and Phillip Rivers would be pretty good.
Now I'm intrigued, but
listen,
I usually have to make lists for this kind of stuff because
I don't know how many times I have to say this.
Yes,
I have the answer. Somebody's just got to ask me.
Yeah, you got me on this one, but I don't like naming all quarterbacks. So,
well, I give you Randy Moss. Bottom line is, it's like catchers being managers. Quarterbacks are the best guys to do it. They have to understand what they're doing, and they have to understand what the defense is doing. They're by far the most qualified guys.
Greg Olsen,
like it, but
Greg Olsen will be good.
I don't think he'll suck, but
Tim Tebow's horrific.
Oh my god. Marino, no.
Marino's okay. He's okay.
No, I'm not seeing it. No chance.
No. I'm not getting tired. I'm good. I'm good. I want to carve out some time here before we go for college football because I know we have really strong feelings on what could happen. The latest right now with what's going on in the Big Ten. Nebraska is an embarrassment. Nebraska is a total embarrassment.
Are they an embarrassment, or are they finding out? They made the wrong move?
They know they made the wrong move. They're not a regional match. They're not a good enough program to compete in the Big Ten right now. Maybe because they're playing, the poor matches in terms of regional rivalries. They've lost some sizzle on the recruiting trail, and I also think it is harder to recruit to shitholes. A lot harder than it was.
Have you ever been to Lincoln?
Come on.
You ever been to the warehouse district in Omaha?
Come on, man.
It's down the road, but they have a similar thing in Lincoln.
Yeah.
College towns? What do you think? Starkville, Mississippi is like paradise?
No, not at all. No, I think there are SEC cities that are, and obviously the SEC has the other factor, and that is I'm not going to play. If I'm an African American, I'm not going to play where they're still fighting for the Confederate flag. Go fuck yourselves. Like we know what's going on. So
then all the northern schools should be getting all the talent.
Well, that's a challenge too because of weather, right? We know that. Right. But Nebraska is not a good match for the Big Ten. Should they be squawking here? No. This is to me, it's a bad look, and they really don't have much of a leg to stand on. Like, your program's not good. It hasn't been good for what was it? The note I read today was they haven't finished in the top 20 in 10 years, and they haven't finished in the top 10 at the end of the season in 20 years. Like, you're not a great program anymore, and I don't know that it ever will be again. But think about it. And you know what? They are also one of those programs that falls victim to their super high expectations. believing that, 2015, 2020 are the same as 1974, 1985, and 1995. Things have changed. You're not looked at as a superpower. And what did you say earlier? There are kids now who don't know who Deion Sanders is. There are kids now who don't remember Tom Osborne and, Mike Rozier and go back to the 70s. They just don't.
Right.
They don't.
So let me ask you a question. I want to look this up.
Yeah.
So what give me your Nebraska stat again?
They haven't finished in the top 20 or the top 10 in the last 20 years and the top 20 in the last 10 years. Now, Pelini, how long ago was Pelini? The funny thing is they blew him out, and he was consistently winning 8-9 games.
They blew him out because he was a horse's ass.
But before, look at Frank Solich's overall record. Should Frank Solich have been about a 25-year coach there? Probably.
Okay, so maybe. Like I will say this. I am completely open to the fact, and we talked about this earlier, I'm completely open to the fact that the northern schools are all screwed, and that includes Ohio State. Let me see Ryan Day win a championship, and I'll buy in. I had Urban Meyer at the American Century Championship a couple of years ago sit down right before all the shit hit the fan there at Ohio State, and I said, listen, you won national championships at Florida and Ohio State. I said, before you won at Ohio State, people were telling me you can only win in the Sun Belt. If you're not in the Sun Belt, if you're not like L.A. to, Miami or a little bit north of that, right? L.A. to Atlanta, let's say, like you're not winning. And I said, is that reality? And just Urban Meyer's so good, right? You stroke his ego. Urban Meyer's so good, you could get it done at Ohio State, but no one else is. I said, or is that overblown? And he kind of hemmed and hawed, but he loved the question, right? It totally played to his ego. He loved the question. Because later when he got done, like he gave me like 6 minutes. He was taking the headset off on the last question. As he walks away, he knocks on the table. He goes, great questions. Yeah, you like that one where I just totally buttered you up there? I'm sure you loved it. But I think it's real because other than Urban Meyer at Ohio State, who has won in the North since Tom Osborne in Nebraska in the 90s, so 25 years ago.
Well, what is winning? Is winning national championships or is winning 9-10 games?
Now I think it's playoffs. Now I think it's going to playoffs. And right now all we have are Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Georgia,
right.
LSU.
But
We've got like a handful of schools. That's all that's going there.
I think that's changing in the future. They're going to have a bigger playoff. And
agreed.
Yeah, I think you can win in the North because the SEC can only take so many players. Some of the Big 12 schools that are elite can only take so many players. There's plenty of players out there. So you can win at Wisconsin and Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State.
I will disagree. There's plenty of players.
Washington.
I will fight that. I will fight that there's plenty of players. Like, yeah, is somebody going to put the uniform on and go out there? Yes. But like difference makers, the SEC, like, listen, it's hard to judge a kid at 18 years old at 230 pounds for an offensive tackle and like who can put on the weight and play at a high level. And that's why there's a kid, Eric Fisher goes number 1 from a MAC school. And those guys do grow up. But guys that are the real deal and they are going to be able to play and man the position, they all go to SEC schools. And I've talked to the coaches that try to recruit, and they're like, the kids will go and be a backup at the SEC because they think that's their ticket. But I want to come back to what you said about, how many years it's been since they were out of the top 10 or top 20. What was it again?
Last 10 years, they haven't finished in the top 20. And last 20 years, they haven't finished in the top 10.
Okay, so 12. So there was a run where USC did not crack the top 10 for 12 years. Mm-hmm. For 13 years. And in that stretch, they had 2 years that they finished in the top 20. Right. And then they hired Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
And were laughed at for hiring him, by the way. So the question is, has Nebraska just not gotten the right coach?
That's a lot of it.
Has Michigan just not gotten the right coach? Has Notre Dame just not gotten the right coach? I mean, Brian Kelly's finished in the top 10. He's finished in the top 5 a couple of times. And certainly of late, it looks like he's got that machine up and running again. But I think it's a valid question.
I think
the talent not going up there.
I think there's enough players to go around. I also think in the future, players are going to move a lot more, even more than they do now. Most importantly, the guy who helps you win in a program, we saw that at LSU. They never had a quarterback. They finally got Joe Burrow.
Yes.
He moved from sort of north to south. these quarterbacks, if they don't play within 2 years, they're going to find another program and potentially make them elite. Now, the crazy thing is, this one's nuts. You had Jamie Newman leave Wake to go to Georgia, and then JT Daniels, who's a former top 5 quarterback recruit, leaves USC, and he's like, where should I go? Let me scan the map. Oh, I'm going to go to Georgia. Like, what are you doing? There's a top 3 quarterback like that. That's nuts to me. But I think that's going to happen a lot less, where kids are not going to play, because Bama, USC, LSU, Michigan, Ohio State, some of these elite quarterbacking schools, Clemson, they're going to stack. They're going to always have a stack of 3 quarterbacks on the roster, but a couple of them are going to bail if they don't play within 2 years. So I think that's going to help programs in the North and maybe programs that are down turn into winning programs.
I believe Nebraska is capable of more
programs.
Yeah, I believe Nebraska. Okay, that's a good point. I believe Nebraska is capable of more than what they're doing, but is the ceiling what Wisconsin is now? Like owning the lesser division in a big conference and winning your 10 games, but never even scaring the national championship hunt, right? Is that the peak now? And I'm open to it. Like I think Ryan Day and Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, like if he doesn't get it done, there's no reason for Jim Harbaugh not to be in the playoffs based upon what his resume was coming in.
Yep.
Like Stanford and the limitations that you have at Stanford for who you can recruit, and he's able to get a Texas kid to go play quarterback there. He got the quarterback right. He seemed like a quarterback guru. He takes Colin Kaepernick in the second. He goes to the 49ers, takes him in the second round. First of all, he turns around Alex Smith's career, gets Colin Kaepernick in the second or third round, turns him into a guy that takes all the way to the Super Bowl. He appeared to have every single box checked going to Michigan, and he's been good. He's won a bunch of 10-win games, 10-win seasons. I do think that he is a little bit unfairly criticized because he's such a polarizing topic, that he has greatly improved Michigan, and they're just a play or two here or there against Ohio State in 2 different games of being like, okay, they've taken down Ohio State twice. They would have been in consideration for the playoffs. He's not far, but if he can't kick down that door, and you've got Michigan and Notre Dame's been there, but then just got their ass handed to them when they got to the championship game. Like you got Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska. Nebraska can't even be good. Michigan and Notre Dame have been good. Sometimes look really good, but then get pummeled. Like it's a real question to say, is college football just the Sun Belt?
The SEC. You have to.
I think Oklahoma.
Oh, the Sun Belt. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like I would say like a line almost from LA across to Atlanta, and then maybe you got to go up a little bit to get Oklahoma in there. But OU, Texas, all of the SEC, USC, like Chip Kelly. I mean, like maybe Oregon's going to be good again. I mean, they look. This was a year they were supposed to be really good. They had a lot of the pieces.
They're going to be.
I think Oregon will be good because they got Nike money behind them, so maybe they're the exception.
They have Nike money and Mario Cristobal bouncing around the country, playing at Miami and then coaching in the SEC. I think he's starting to build Oregon.
I agree.
Like an SEC team. The other thing to throw in there, some of this is cyclical, and Nick Saban's going to coach 4 or 5 more years. Then when
till he dies.
Then when Numbnuts takes over, Dabo, when he takes over at Alabama, Clemson might be shit.
Like Clemson might be shit, but Clemson also. I think it's a great point. And is Clemson a one-coach program? Right, they're not, because Danny Ford won a national championship there, and they've always had that. And that's kind of what Nebraska has. Like Clemson looked like it's just a fluke. They just got lucky, but they always had the passion. They always had the fans, and Nebraska has that if they can find the right guy. Right, I think it's there. They don't have the built-in recruiting base. I remember when the Big 12, when everybody was flaking on the Big 12, and A&M was leaving and Missouri was leaving. Before that, Colorado and Nebraska had left. And everyone's like, oh, they're dead. And there was this big push, and like the ACC was getting beat up, and Big 12 people were saying, well, go get Clemson and Florida State. And that was being fueled by the fact that you had Jimbo Fisher at Florida State talking about, like, I don't know what this conference is giving us. Our conference schedule sucks. We can't sell out the building. And basically it wasn't, other than his 1 year, he wasn't getting it done. When he was kind of throwing the ACC under the bus, they go to Dabo Swinney. To his credit, and I know he's a polarizing figure and he says some stupid things sometimes, but they went to Dabo Swinney and they're like, hey, Big 12's kind of looking around. What do you think? He's like, everything we need. This is before he'd even sniffed a national title. Everything we need to win a national championship is right here. We're in the most fertile recruiting grounds. We don't need to go play across. We're not going to recruit Texas. So there's no point in going and playing Texas and Texas Tech and Baylor. We need to play schools that play in our region because all the talent in the world is right here. Everything we need to win a national championship is right here. And that was bucking the system. It's the exact opposite of what Jimbo Fisher was saying down at Florida State. So listen, that territory is fertile ground. Like, I'm with you. Like, Dabo Swinney may stay at Clemson. He may go to Alabama. Who knows? But just look at Alabama pre-Nick Saban. Same thing I said about USC. If the coach is wrong, you're going to suck no matter what.
Yep. And they did for a long time. Let's answer some questions because we got a bunch of them coming in.
Let's do it.
Mr. Tiger Gator says, send Nebraska to the SEC or the Big 12. They don't want to go to the SEC. My question for you is, would the Big 12 take Nebraska back, or are there enough burnt, chapped asses where they're like, hey, you bailed on us? They take them back? They need it?
Yeah, I mean,
rivalries.
I think they would take them back under the right conditions. I think this is the thing. If Nebraska bails, and I think there's some smoke up there to this idea because they really want to play, and I think their budget's hurting. They had to go through like every conference. When you switch conferences, like, you don't get as much money at first. Now they're full shares and everything with the Big Ten. But, I think they need the money. They don't have the kind of endowment that Michigan has, that Ohio State has. While they're a big historical football program, they don't have the population base. They're not the size of those universities to where they have the kind of endowments that they have, or the quantity of donors and the quantity of donors that make the amount of money that they make.
By the way, I was talking about the Big Ten and how much all these smaller cities in the Big Ten get effed by having no football. And I was pointing out the household median income of each of the markets, the smaller markets, and Lincoln ain't good. No. People aren't breaking the bank in Lincoln, Nebraska. So
no,
that could be donor. There's rich people, but the small amounts of money you would get from different donors. If the household ain't making a whole lot of money, you ain't getting money.
Yeah, I know, and that's real, and they understand that, and so. Like, listen, would Nebraska go to the Big 12? I don't think so. I think they've got hurt feelings. Like, this year is going to be a big bite of the shit sandwich, right? Who's taking a bite of the shit sandwich? Nebraska. Because I think they need that Big 10 money, right? They need that Big 10 network money. And while the Big 12 is making more money, they're not making more money than the Big 10, but they're making a good amount of money. You go down there, you're another school which is chopping the pie up into an 11th, and if they bring you, they're going to go get a 12th, or they're going to go, goodbye, West Virginia. And if the ACC will have them, West Virginia would gladly leave for the ACC or the SEC if they could get out and not have to have the travel that they have to have. I've talked to people, I know people up there, like, they want no part of it. That's their dream. So maybe they would just stay at 10 with bringing Nebraska in and replacing West Virginia. And would they take that? Would that work? I mean, I think it works right now. Does it work long term? I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, you've got a heavy payday in the Big Ten. And yes, you got to take zero this year. But for the 10 years after and the 20 years after that, that's why for me, and I know it's one of the things we talk about, what is the NCAA and the Power Fives look like 10 years from now? And that's what Nebraska has to figure out. You can get your panties in a bunch right now and be all hurt and, oh, it's bullshit. We wanted to play and everything. And you run off. But like I read, I can't remember who it was, and maybe it was, I can't remember who wrote it. They said Nebraska was running from something when they went to the Big Ten. They were running from the Big 12 because they thought it was on fire and not running to the Big Ten. I would disagree with that. They ran to the money of the Big Ten, right? And I think it's a great phrase.
You don't think it was fear of Texas and Oklahoma going whatever Pac-12 or SEC?
I think it was both.
Maybe left around to carry the whole freaking league as the elite program.
I think it was both, and I think it's a great phrase. Like, when you're thinking about changing a job, make sure you're running to something and not running from something, right? So don't just leave to leave because you're pissed. Make sure you're going to a better spot, or you're just going to be pissed at the new place. I think it's great advice, but it was a complicated situation. The Big 12 looked like it was dying, and I'm telling you, everybody was grabbing for a vine, and largely because Nebraska was bailing. But I mean, they looked at it and they knew Texas wasn't going to share,
right?
And Nebraska could not get over that. So they ran to the fact that they would be an equal partner in the Big Ten. And I think what you've got right now where Nebraska needs to wake up is, you didn't want to give Texas their money. Let Texas have the Longhorn Network. You wanted to be an equal partner. You wanted everyone to share and share alike. You at least wanted Texas to get no more than you, right? And now you've got that, and now you're bitching. You've got to pay the freight on what it is you want. Everybody else is shutting down. You have to shut down. And I think it's tough for Nebraska to handle because what they want, what was best for them, whatever it was 10 years ago, that day, that phrase doesn't fit right now because what's best for them is to go play and do what's best for me. But if you're going to be a part of something where it's share and share alike, then share and share alike. And I think eventually that's what they'll figure out.
Yeah. The overall college football picture, say 5 years from now, or maybe even 8 years from now, it may take a little more time. What do you think it'll be? Because for the longest time I said, you know what? The Power Five is going to break off from the Group of Five. They're going to take some of the Group of Five schools that they feel have value, and we'll probably have a Power Five in football that has 5 conferences, 16 teams apiece, so we're at 80 teams. I don't know that they're going to take that many. I think they may actually just take a couple, and there's going to be a lot of Group of Five schools that are like, what just happened? Now we are really on the outside looking, and we're screwed.
I think it depends on here's what I think. If you go with 65, do you have enough games, and will you play enough good games to fill all the TV slots, or is there still a spot for the Mountain West in particular, which is by far the best conference that's not, and I know that's your backyard, that's UNLV.
I would say I can't say it now. AAC it's a better football conference.
I don't think so.
Now, do they have marquee?
Why is the AAC better?
Oh, I think they've got some higher level football programs. Boise's very good, but the AAC, well, first of all, the AAC has some Florida teams, and in Florida, football matters the most, so they're going to go for broke. Central Florida.
I think if you got them aced out and the Mountain West play the AAC, I think the AAC does a good job of scheduling.
Yeah.
And creating, these teams that look good. I don't know if they're any better than the Mountain West.
You know what's interesting about the Mountain West, and it gets crapped on all the time. There's a lot.
And maybe it's because I live there and I give it and I covered it. But
let's look at like money for programs. The Mountain West actually has some weird money pockets that people would never realize. It's almost like North Dakota State. People don't realize like they have a lot of money to back that program,
right?
Because there's certain industries in these states, and obviously, farming's a big deal. But like Wyoming and Colorado State have a ton of money behind their programs. Now, Wyoming's playing good football now. CSU's got this bullshit with Adazio, but there are 4 or 5 very interesting programs in the Mountain West Conference, and like what's truly attractive with a money backing in the AAC. I don't think it's Cincinnati, even though it's a good program. I don't think that's that attractive. Right? Do you?
No, not at all. No.
I think Central Florida is. Temple, forget about it. South Florida, I think, has potential. East Carolina, Connecticut, forget about it. Is Memphis intriguing because of FedEx?
No.
No? Wow.
Is it intriguing?
I'm saying that.
I don't think it's intriguing. Like, intriguing to me says, like, oh, there's more ceiling there. No, Memphis is Memphis.
Okay.
I think you're maximizing your returns right now.
Yeah.
Like to my what I've said.
By the way, the 2 others that I would mention with money and they're fired up about football. SMU and Houston have money and they're into football, and they're both in big markets too. That's the other thing from TV standpoint. You get Dallas and you get Houston.
So to me, University of Houston is sitting there.
Yeah.
You don't need you don't need TCU for Dallas because nobody gives a shit in Dallas about TCU. I've been to. They care about
SMU.
UT. It's
SMU.
UT, and then A&M, and then Texas Tech.
Right.
And then 4th is TCU in their own town. And so, like, TCU has brought really no cachet to the Big 12. Texas gave them everything they needed. And for Houston, if you had A&M, you had Houston, right? That you'd have been all set. But when you lose A&M, I would go get Houston and try to build their program. Listen, to me, the thing that I would do, I'm with you with what's available now. A&M's not leaving the SEC. I would go get Houston, right? And I would take. I always felt the thing that I said that the Big 12 needed to be looking to do when conference realignment started coming around was they need to start giving some playing partners to Colorado to not lose Colorado. And I always wanted to go get Utah and Wyoming and even Colorado State if necessary. What I said was, you're not going east, right? Anything, if you go east, go get Louisville. And they shit around and didn't get Louisville, and the ACC got Louisville. And West Virginia is a fine program, and their fans are great, and they can scare some people and everything, but they're just too far away. It's like that they will not. 25 years from now, they're not in the Big 12. Where are they? I'm not sure, but they're not in the Big 12. It's too far away. To me, what was available was the Mountain Time Zone, and that is a growing time zone. You know, all the mountain cities are growing, right? People like to get the mountains. They want to get the hell away from the heat. It's getting hotter, so the summers in the mountains are great, right? People and people want to get the hell away from the cold. So in places like Vegas and Phoenix and Arizona, they want to get the hell away in the winter, right? Those are growing areas in the country. So my thought was always, well, why don't you go pick up the best? Like, go get Utah. Well, that's gone now. They're not leaving the Pac-12, and Colorado's gone. But now, to me, if the Big 12's future, if you talk about like the Power Fives, what's it going to be? Like, if they break away, I don't think it's going to be conferences. I think it's going to be divisions, like a 65 or 80 team NFL. And it's going to be football only, and the other sports will go play wherever. Maybe it's football and basketball, and you're going to have divisions. And maybe you have a Mountain Division, and you have a Midwest Division, and you have a Southeast Division, and you have an Atlantic Division, whatever it is. And that's how they end up doing it. That's what I see coming. That's what I hear, is that when they break away, football is going to be its own entity. And the football schools are going to divide just the football money, and it's going to end up being a divisional thing, like 8 divisions of 10, right? And so each one of those division winners is an automatic, and then 8 more wild cards, and you get a 16-team tournament, and that's how it's going to play. But if you look at where it is, to me, the best Mountain Time Zone teams is where they should be looking to add to the Big 12. And to me, the Big 12 should be the first conference to get to 16.
Interesting. If it's all about football, will Kansas be going to the West Coast Conference to play like Gonzaga? I mean, there is truth to when the really bad Big 12 split was going to happen. Kansas was looking around like, we might have to go to the Mountain West because the basketball does not matter at all.
And I disagree with that. See, I disagree with that. Like, football matters more, and that's why Nebraska went to the Big 10, but hasn't worked. If Nebraska flakes, who would the Big 10 replace him with?
Well, obviously, they'd like to make a run at Notre Dame. That's not going to happen. I don't know. Who's your team?
I think Notre Dame could. We'll see how they like playing in a conference, theoretically, with the ACC this year. So, no, just think it through. Just play my game. Okay, so Notre Dame says no. Then where do you turn?
Chatters, what do you have for the Big 10 as another team? Brad says Mizzou.
I think Mizzou always wanted to be in the Big 10.
Yeah.
Right? I think they always wanted to be in the Big 10. Absolutely. And the SEC brags about how there's no exit penalty because who would ever leave the SEC? Right. I absolutely believe Mizzou would run there.
So,
but listen to this. What does Mizzou bring to the Big 10?
I would say you're getting a lot of Kansas answers. I would say less than Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas. I mean, because what we found is that Nebraska, at least to this point, has not stood up and held up their end of the bargain on football. Yeah. So how much worse is Kansas football than Nebraska? Well, a lot, but not a lot when it comes to TV ratings. Like, yes, record-wise, they've been a doormat, but they're pouring money into it, trying to make it good, right? We'll see if it comes around. But as far as TV ratings, Nebraska doesn't move the needle. They move the needle in Lincoln. Okay, but their national cachet, as you've said, over 10 or 12 years or 20 years of not really being ranked that high, they don't move the needle national rankings wise or national ratings wise. So if you look at Kansas, granted, you drop off a little bit on football, but what do you gain? Like, what do they need on the Big Ten Network? Programming. Basketball is much more important than people realize. And think about this. If you're going to break away, everybody says, well, football is where all the money is. Yes, that's because the NCAA sucks up all the basketball money. But if you leave the NCAA, that's just because the basketball schools haven't sued to control the basketball money because they need the smaller teams to fill out a 64-team bracket. But if you break away and say, all right, piss on it, we're going to play a 32-team tournament, and it's going to be all of us big guys, and we're going to keep the money for the basketball, basketball becomes a lot more. There are billions and billions of dollars in basketball, but it all goes to the NCAA, and it goes to 1AA, D2, D3. There's way more money in basketball than people realize because there's way more commercials to be sold in basketball. Basketball is this like hidden gem of a revenue source that's just not being maximized by the Power Fives. So if you are going to break away and you need the 34 regular season games that you're going to run to fill your network, which you do because they run the shit out of basketball, all right, then Kansas starts to become a real attractive. It's the best basketball brand you can grab. I think I've always felt that if they were going to push on up towards 16, which is where I think these leagues are going to go ultimately, then the two schools that they would go after would be Missouri and Kansas in the Big Ten. Right. They lose Nebraska, they need Missouri, Kansas, and somebody else.
So 5 conferences with 16 teams. Yep. You see people comment, and by the way, I now that I think about it, with Kansas taking the football shot at them is unfair because they are trying, and they're trying,
but they suck. I mean, it's also fair to say they suck.
No, but they're funded. No, if it's trying and you're not funded and there's no hope, that's one thing. So I see, of course, Peter's joking here about they're already in the Big Ten, Dick. They need the monster Rutgers program. They already have it, and Rutgers has money. So, and they're trying. They had a perfect storm hit. Their coach left, and now they brought him back, and he's got freaking $32 million deal for 8 years. So,
and
what do you think about
and 50 kids quarantined?
Yeah, that was embarrassing. So that's not a good start for him. And should I be mean and say hopefully they're the guys that he wants to push out anyway? So get out, dumbasses, for going to a party on campus and parties around New Jersey. How do you react to people saying Syracuse should be in the Big Ten?
I mean, we don't fit. I mean,
okay. How about that? How about a follow up? Are you embarrassed? Are you embarrassed right now that Syracuse may have to play with COVID going on in the ACC, especially considering the fact, and I give these kids credit. Kids went to Dino Babers about 10 days ago, and they're like, football players are like, what's going on here? Because a couple of things. First, we don't really trust some of these ACC schools, and the other one is you have Liberty on the schedule. Liberty's playing Cuse and 2 other ACC opponents. Jerry Falwell Jr. is a fucking moron. They just pushed away from him. They're
who amongst us hasn't taken a photo in our skinny jeans with our fly undone with a kind of groping photo of a woman who's not our wife,
right?
While leading a major religious institution.
You're playing a school that wanted
to let ye cast the first stone.
Exactly. Go into your preacher apology mode. But they're freaking COVID hoaxers. They wanted to get the kids back on campus as much as possible. They're anti-maskers. And if you're at Syracuse, you're like, listen, I don't want to play football against kids who go to a school like that. And that's a real conversation. And your school's in the ACC. Yeah. Your kids are going to head to the belly of the beast in many of these states.
So I will say that I think right now the most underreported part of the equation is that of the ACC, Big 12, and SEC, there are some schools that people are saying are going to bail. Right? Like when it's like they haven't bailed yet, there are schools in those leagues that are saying they're not going to play. And maybe Syracuse is one of those schools. I don't know. Maybe it's a Vanderbilt. I'm going to tell you, I think it's going to probably be the better academic schools that are like, you're ass kicked anyway. So we'll sit this one out. Probably your schools with the bigger endowments. I look, so, this is where we get to would I play sports? No, if it were up to me, no. But this is where it becomes everyone's personal choice. And I'll give you full disclosure, right? I got a 13-year-old. She's not going to school, right? We're going to keep her home. Now, she's visually impaired, and so she can't do anything without touching everything, right? So that's an easy, she's going to stay home. Her TBI that we employ, teacher for the visually impaired, we employ has got a health risk and everything, and we're not going to subject her to that. So we're choosing that option. My 10-year-old, I wish we weren't having school, so she didn't have to go, but they are having school and all her friends are going, and she desperately wants to go to be around her friends. And so as of right now, we're sending her, hoping that everybody comes to the realization that, no, we need to do virtual learning. So this to me is a difficult one in the sense that I get why they want to play ball. And I don't think they should be villainized for wanting to play ball. I certainly don't think they should be villainized for waiting to make their decision, just as I don't think the Big Ten or Pac-12 should be villainized for calling it off, because I know how difficult these choices are in my home with my own kids about what needs to happen. But yeah, I mean, I think it's an incredible look under the microscope of where we are as a society and how we're going to do this thing.
Yep. And we're embarking on, with college football, we're embarking on another us versus them. And I'm not saying I'm us or them. It's just everything has to be an us versus them, and it gets weaponized. The decisions made. There's a ton of nuance here. It's not black or white, so it's going to get crazy on that front. Yeah, I'm curious to see what certain schools do. And the biggest thing is, what do all the schools have the money to do the kind of testing they need to? I saw the Big 12 was kind of leaking some stuff and saying, hey, they're going to do a ton of tests. Is that from a conference level, or is that school by school? Can every school in the Big 12 afford it? Can every school in the ACC afford that kind of stuff?
I think it's absolutely, and you and I have had these conversations on your radio show when we've talked about, UNLV basketball versus Kansas basketball, because UNLV has tradition, but like, hey, here's what Kansas puts into their basketball program. If you want to be like Kansas, here's some of the expenses that they put out there. I was told Eli Drinkwitz, the new coach of Missouri, on his Zoom said it's $140 a test. Now, you're going to test guys 2-3 times a week, 85 kids. I assume the walk-ons are going to be there. 100 kids, 3 times a week. Like, do the math real quick, right? 100 kids, one time, just one time, you're at what, 14,000?
14,000, yep.
And so,
3 tests, you're at $42,000 a week. And then, there's all the administrative costs too, I'm sure, around it.
Right.
We're talking millions and millions of dollars to get through a football season.
And in reality, you're talking about the coaching staff, the support staff, all of them having to be tested just as many times as well. And then you're going to do that for 15 weeks. So you're talking about, best guess is $3 million in just testing costs during the course of the year for these Power 5 schools. Listen, the tens of millions of dollars that are the $50 million that's riding on the television, that's worthwhile. But if you're in the Big Sky Conference, like, you can't do it. And without the testing and the contact tracing is not free, right? Like, all that, going to put a necklace around them so we know where they are every minute of the day and who was around them, whether they came into contact with somebody. That shit's not free. And so you can see why the MAC, part of the reason the MAC is opting out is like, it's safety and it's cost. Like, to be safer, it costs a lot of money. And a lot of the smaller leagues don't have that kind of money. So, listen, the one thing I wish we could get away from as a country, but also as sports fans, is that there's got to be a good guy and a bad guy. Like, there isn't always somebody to villainize.
Yeah.
So, like we talk about it all the time here, right? It's a joke, and we do it as a little bit of a segment. But, sometimes you got to take a bite of this shit sandwich, right? COVID's a shit sandwich. We're all taking a bite. You got more money? I've always said it, like, right? Every job is a bite of this shit sandwich. It's how big a bite do they make you take? How much sauce do they give you to try to wash it down?
Mm-hmm.
If you're rich, it's a little nibble and there's plenty of sauce on it. You don't even really taste it, right? You don't even really taste it. You live in your mansion, and then you go to your lake house, and then you go to your beach house, and you fly on your private jet wherever. You can't even really taste the shit, right? You're poor, and you got to go to work in the meatpacking plant. And then you got to come home and live with 6, 7, 8, family members all in an enclosed space, and they're working in other high-risk jobs. Man, that's a big fat bite of the shit sandwich with no sauce.
That's pulling that Rams porta potty shit out and having to eat it.
But I mean, like, if you're a conference, it's the same thing. Like, if you're a big conference with big schools with big endowments, it's like, hey, we got to save the $50 million TV money, so we're going to spend the $4 million to get the 50. But if your TV money's 8, or 6 or 2, and really all your money comes from ticket sales and student fees, and students aren't coming back to campus anyway. Safety. So I love that everyone's quoting the safety. We're not playing because of the safety. You're not playing because of the safety, and you can't afford what it takes to make it safer. I mean, money is always there.
Adam jumped in and said, what about the women's sports too? Like that goes into the budget, doesn't it? They have to play.
Yeah.
Can't cancel it.
And that's the thing. And if you do that, you got to test everybody else. And that's why like it's millions of dollars
Jesus Christ.
just to test 2 or 3 times a week.
It's like freaking at a Power 5, you could be, oh my God. I mean, you're talking freaking 400 or 500 in each seat.
And then kick this in. Major universities have big medical centers on campus, free. Like some of it's free. Like at least the people who are doing the testing, you're not having to pay the employees to do that. You've already got the medical center on there. Because I know Mizzou was trumpeting like, well, we got to pay this $140, but then we're going to get it shifted over, and the Mizzou Medical Center is where we're going to be going, and so that's going to cut down our cost. But yes, you've got to fund all the sports. You can't just send everybody else home.
Last one. We're going to wrap it. Last one. On our show, Cofield and Company, we brought up, Adam Hill did, the pod system. What is the pod system? And he mentioned the Chiefs had talked about it, and Jerry Jones, I don't know if he leaked it or not, but Jerry Jones
Chiefs,
mentioned
Pats, Cowboys, right? Weren't those the 3?
So what is it?
People they'll sell you tickets. You're going to go as a group. You're going to commit to just being with that group. So like people have said, well, is it going to be 4 tickets? Is it going to be 8 tickets? Is it going to be 12, 16? There's going to be some amount, and you go and you commit to going with that group, and that group will be isolated from other groups. So it's a way, instead of spacing everybody 6 feet apart, which is 3 seats, right? Because despite how fat everybody's ass is in this country, it's really 3 seats was like about 2 feet each, right? 6 feet. Instead of spacing everybody 3 seats apart, it's like, okay, you sign off and commit to, well, I'm going with these people, and I'm just going to stay around these people, and we're going to do everything together. We're going to sit together, and we all know each other, and we're all good. And if we get it, it's our fault because we're just around these people. And all it is a CYA for the teams. And, the teams want to be able to sell more tickets. It's a way to get more people into the stadium and for people to sign off, because they know there's plenty of people that are going to say, hey, masks are bullshit, or social distancing, we don't need it. And so let's go do it. And so they can put more people in little clusters around, and then they'll socially distance each group. But then, they're going to go into the stadium at different times. Have you ever gone into a game at an NFL stadium? You tell me how it works. And in Kansas City, where everybody tailgates, we're going to shut down our tailgate an hour and 20 minutes early so our group can go in when we're socially distanced. We're going in. Listen, granted, there will still only be a fraction of the people that are there, and it won't be the 40 minutes of just a melee of people trying to crowd their way into the stadium. But there's no way. And then you got to take a leak. You want to go get a concession. You want to go get something. Are you all gonna have a rope around you and you move as an amoeba towards the bathroom and everybody pisses and nobody else but your cluster, your pod can come into the bathroom? Like, it sounds great, and I get it, and I get that these teams are trying to salvage revenue, and I get that fans want to see football, and I get that they're trying to find a way. But do you really think that this group, we're all testing on Tuesday and Thursday before we go to the games on Sunday? Yeah. Okay.
Final one. You can talk me off the ledge on this one. Tomorrow we have a guest on who works for Fox Sports Radio who's like really vocal about what a stupid move it was for the Big Ten to drop football in the fall. They're never going to recover from it. In fact, a guy named Aaron Torres, he said they're absolutely not coming back to play in the spring. Should I offer him a bet? Because I say the Big Ten will play in the spring. I'll bet $1,000. Now,
I know that's nothing for you, first of all. That's for people who don't know you, that's pocket change.
Well, it's not. But the other concern here is global odds came out, which means the limits on these are like $50. The Big Ten football in the spring, was minus 650. So do I offer a bet? Yes, on the Big Ten. Ask him to take no, because he was so definitive about it the other day. Do I ask for odds, or we just go straight up 1,000 versus 1,000?
No, I would ask for the odds, but take a fraction of the odds, 2,000 to 1,000. Just take 2 to 1.
I think people. Well, you know what the funny thing is,
take 3 to 1. If he's a big talker, say, hey, the odds are 6.5. See if you can get 650. Yeah. 6,500 to your 1,000.
No, it would be. I would get. Yeah, he would have to put up 6,500
Yeah.
And I would win 3,500. So I guess I'd ask for 3,500 versus 1,000. But I don't think he'll do it. But he does claim on his Twitter account to pick college basketball games and that he had a lot of success. So he must be dabbling in betting a little bit.
Okay. So, like, personally, I think no one's going to play. I think when all the leagues get there, like, how is baseball done? And they have millions of dollars riding on it, and they still shit themselves. And the Indians just have the two guys. Now, maybe they're not infected, but they have to quarantine. The two guys just sneak out after all the problems that have happened with the Marlins and the Cardinals, and they still go out there and sneak out, right? And head out on the town. Their teammates are turning them in. Do you really think college kids are not going to just be at a house party, a door? Like Rutgers, we can laugh at Rutgers. They're all going to be just like Rutgers. They're all going to be just like Rutgers. And maybe there'll be one or two that aren't, but the vast majority are going to be like Rutgers.
So what I
don't fear the virus.
Yep.
They have no financial stake.
Yep.
Right. And you can be like, well, what about the first rounders? That's a fraction of the kids. Most of these kids know that they're not going to the NFL. Like, shit, I got a chance to go out and, have some drinks and, smoke some weed and chase some ass. Like, yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
That was my fear on the bet is that the SEC, ACC, and Big 12 do it, and it's just a total disaster, and that ruins the spring. That ruins the chance of.
If you can take that out of it, like say they have to, like the fall sports have to play, and then I say Big 10 will play,
right?
Then it's a no-brainer. But I really think, just like I think kids are all going to end up virtually learning on the school thing, I just don't see how this can possibly work. And I hope it does work. I think it'd be great. Like I said, I got one kid who, as of right now, we're planning on sending back to school. But I hope the colleges work because I feel terrible for college kids. College is one of the best times of your life, man. To have that stripped from them and be sitting at home staring at a Zoom thing and watching TV, that sucks. It sucks. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'm paid to give, opinions based upon analysis. And the analysis says to me, I don't see how this can work.
All right.
What about you?
What if like 10 people buy the cowboy pack from Meetup Vegas, and then I get some of the benefits from that, and then I bet that money. So it's really your bet in the chat room.
Yeah,
come on, back me up. Back me up.
That's some stakes.
Yeah. God damn it. Pun intended.
Sure.
High stakes bet. Stakes.
Yep.
All right. Soren, you're the man.
How can I be the man if you're the man?
I know. I was lying.
All right, brother.
Yeah, there were some great comments tonight. I wish we could have gotten to more of them. We're back tomorrow at the normal time at 10:30. Justin Watkins, our legal insider, will be.
That's my favorite. I like to chime in on the.
Your comments are very intelligent.
I like to sit in on the and get in and get my shots in on there.
I figured at like 1 o'clock your time.
Yeah,
that things are getting a bit loose. Things are getting a bit loose with the gym.
I'm working, man. I'm working. I work late. I don't go on the air till 2 p. I work late in the evening, Steve.
We actually the legal podcast we should just name like Karen, because that's all we do because we know it triggers Justin Watkins. He's like I say when he comes on ESPN Las Vegas, I say like he's the adult in the room. Like we need an adult to be with us to calm us down. The guy served in office for a couple of years in the Nevada Assembly. He's got kids. He's the adult. This is the only time this guy gets unhinged. And like the cursing starts. If we show him Aaron starting to throw out all this legalese, he's like, fuck.
Dude, I do fantasy football with the guy, and we sit in there and we are a bunch of hungover, just hair of the dog drinkers starting at 10 a.m. Vegas time normally. We'd have to do it virtually. But we're all in there, and he is like the most reserved. I was wondering if he was a priest. And then I watched the legal show, and I'm like, oh, man. Like, I guess he's just trying to make us all look bad.
Oh, he's got it. It's in there. He's got it. You just got to, that's what we do in Sports Talk Radio. With partners, you find the spots.
Yeah.
You find the spots.
We do the fantasy league at his law firm.
Yep. You find the spots.
I guess when he's at the law firm, he feels like he's got to be like, like the boss, the leader, like presidential.
As everyone can attest to on the if you watch the Monday night podcast, I started questioning Adam Hill's objectivity in the Vegas Golden Knights goalie battle for playing time, and he fucking lost it. So I was like, okay, got that for the rest of the playoffs. Got it. Don't come unhinged in front of me because it's coming back over and over.